Hello friends, Denny Pruto here with another lesson on the Westminster Shorter Catechism. In this lesson we're looking at question and answer 62. What are the reasons annexed to the fourth commandment? Here's the answer given by the Westminster Divines. The reasons annexed to the fourth commandment are God's allowing us 6 days of the week for our own employments, His challenging a special propriety in the seventh, His own example, and His blessing the Sabbath day. God gives us 4 reasons why we should observe the fourth commandment. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. The 4 reasons involve, first of all, the fact that God gives us 6 days for our own work. Think about this now. There's a rhythm in life. There's a daily rhythm, morning and evening. There's a weekly rhythm, the 7 days of each week. There's a monthly rhythm in life, and there's a yearly rhythm in life. You and I, as creatures of God, are called to observe these rhythms of life, and we're better off when we do observe these rhythms of life. And now 6 days have been given to us in each week by God to accomplish all of the work that He desires us to do. And so we ought not to attempt to cram more work into the 6 days than will fit, and we ought not to desire to do less work in those 6 days that can be accomplished. Most of us have some sort of employment. That is, we have a job to which we go, and Monday through Friday we are involved in that work or that employment. In the evenings we can spend time working on the grass and repairing the car, washing the car, and doing other things around the house. And then also on the 6th day, on Saturday, we can engage in certain employments around our homes, fixing up that which needs repair, etc. And we can also enjoy certain entertainments on that 6th day. And so God gives us 6 days each week, a majority of the time. Think about this now, friends. The vast majority of the time each week to accomplish the things that are necessary in each week. And if you're a youngster and go to school, you go to school 5 days out of the week, and in each evening of the week you possibly have homework. And on the 6th day you may be involved in certain entertainments and recreations on that 6th day. And so God gives you a majority of the time each week to accomplish the things that have been set before you. And you ought not to be jealous about God taking 1 day in 7. This is part of the rhythm of life. And when you and I observe the rhythms of life God has placed in His creation, you and I are much better off. So God gives us 6 days for our own work. And God challenges a special propriety in the 7th. Listen again to the Catechism. The reasons annexed to the fourth commandment are God's allowing us 6 days of the week for our own employments, His challenging a special propriety in the 7th. You notice how God puts it, or the Catechism puts it. God's allowing us 6 days of the week for our own employments. This is what God has set aside for us. And then He challenges a special propriety in the 7th. It's as though God is the proprietor of the universe. He's the owner of the universe. He's the one who created the universe. And He's the one who redeemed each one of you who trust in Jesus Christ. Remember now, in the book of Exodus, the commandment, the fourth commandment, reminds us that God is our creator. And the idea of creation is attached to the fourth commandment. And in the book of Deuteronomy, in chapter 5, God attaches the idea of redemption to this commandment. And so, as the proprietor of the universe, God challenges us to set aside one day in 7 to remember Him as our Creator and our Redeemer, and to worship Him as our Redeemer and as our Creator. He calls us back to these central truths so that we will be settled in these truths and not stray from Him. And as we do this, you and I have a special privilege of meeting with God, with the people of God in worship each Lord's Day, each 7th day of the week. Of course, we have previously talked about the fact that the day has changed between the Old Testament and the New Testament. I suggest that you go back and review the lesson under question and answer 59. Which day of the 7 hath God appointed to be the weekly Sabbath? In the Old Testament economy, it was the 7th day. In the New Testament economy, it's the first day of the week. And so we gather as Christians on the first day of the week to meet with the Lord our God. And one of my favorite verses along this line is in Deuteronomy or Exodus chapter 31 and verses 13 or verse 13. You are to speak to the people of Israel and say, above all you shall keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am the Lord who sanctifies you. That I am the Lord, the one who sanctifies you. Above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths. The Sabbath is a sign, and it's a sign of the fact that the Lord, the Creator and Redeemer, is the one who sets you aside to His service. Many individuals in the church today have a lack of assurance of salvation. They suffer from a lack of assurance with regard to God's work in their lives, definitively. What's the answer? Observe the Sabbath. Because in the Sabbath, God assures you that He is the one who sets you aside for His service. This is a wonderful thing. And this is a challenge for you and me. God not only gives us 6 days each week to do our own work, to do our own study, to carry out our own activities, but He challenges a special propriety in the 7th. He sets aside the 7th to remind us that He is our Creator and Redeemer, to remind us of the fact that He is the one who sets us aside and sanctifies us for His purposes. And so when we come together on the Lord's Day to worship the great God of heaven, God is in the midst of His people to assure them that He is indeed their God and they are indeed His people. He is there to assure them that He is the Lord who sanctifies them and sets them apart for His purposes. What a wonderful thing this is, and what a wonderful opportunity the Sabbath presents to God's people. And so, not only are we to work and labor 6 days, we are to accept the challenge of God as the proprietor of the universe and set aside the 7th day for His worship. But we are to follow God's example in this regard. And when you go back to the book of Genesis, it's quite striking, is it not, that at the end of Genesis chapter 1, God said, or the text says, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good, and there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day." You see, part of the rhythm of life. And we're brought through the sixth day. Chapter 2, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because God rested from all his work and all that he had done in creation." And so God gives this example that on the seventh day he rested, and you and I should understand this is the case. The reasons annexed to the fourth commandment are God's allowing us 6 days of the week for our own employments, his challenging a special propriety in the seventh, his own example. He rested on the seventh day. And why did he rest? On the seventh day, God was able to step back and enjoy his creative work in all that he had done in making the heavens and the earth and placing men and women on the face of the earth. God was able to step back, as it were, and enjoy what he had done. And you and I are to follow his example. You and I are to take a time of rest and to be able to step back and enjoy what God has done in his creation and in redeeming us from the death of sin. What an opportunity God therefore gives us. And as I've said already, we ought not to be selfish about the seventh day and to accomplish all that we need to do in 6 days and accept the challenge of God and rest on the seventh day, following his own example. And is it not true that the great God of heaven, who made us, ought to be our chief exemplar if we're created in his image, and he rested on the seventh day? You and I ought therefore to follow him and rest on this 7-day cycle that he is pleased to give to us. And when Jesus Christ, the only Son of God, comes into the world, what does he do? He follows these commandments explicitly. Yes, he rests on the seventh day. He attends the synagogue services. He leads his disciples in attending the synagogue services on the seventh day. And he draws away from the work that he is sent to accomplish on a daily basis in this world. You and I are to follow God's example. And so, not only should we work diligently 6 days of the week, accept God's challenge with regard to the seventh day, and follow God's example with regard to the seventh day, but understand that God blesses the seventh day. Listen again. The reasons annexed to the fourth commandment are God's allowing us 6 days of the week for our own employments, his challenging a special propriety in the seventh, his own example, and his blessing the Sabbath day. Genesis 2:3, once again, God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. God set it apart for his purposes And on the seventh day, you and I are to come together morning and evening to worship the Lord our God. And as we come together as God's people, you and I are to remember that the church, the gathered assembly of God's people, is the temple, the New Testament temple of the Holy Spirit. And God is graciously present in His holy temple. He sanctifies the Sabbath and sanctifies His worship on the Sabbath to this end. He has a particular use that He has in mind for the Sabbath, and He has a particular use He has in mind for His worship on the Sabbath day. And that particular purpose is that God's people would meet with Him in a gracious way and be assured of His love for them. And so you and I must understand God's blessing of the Sabbath day in this regard and take advantage of what God has prepared for us on the Sabbath day. 6 days for work God has given us. He challenges a special propriety in the seventh. God gives us His example, and God blesses the seventh day, the Sabbath day. These are the reasons that flow from and are annexed to and go with the fourth commandment. Realize them, friends, and as you take advantage of what God has done, rest in the good blessings that God has been pleased to give you with the fourth commandment and following this commandment. Thanks for listening.